Every now and then, something so horrible, so evil, is thrust upon humankind. It's so evil and so deranged that no decent human being would mess with it. Sadly, the PS2's library was not exempt from this. We kick things off with Rockstar's Manhunt 2. Released in 2007, Manhunt 2 is a sequel to the original Manhunt and places you in the role of an escaped mental patient named Daniel Lim. Old Danny Boy has some issues and likes to resolve them by brutally executing anyone in his path. The game is a stealth-based, third-person brawler in which you are encouraged to execute anyone that prevents you from piecing together your past and the brutal reason why you are locked up in an insane asylum. Most of the game is stealth-based, in which you sneak up on your enemies and execute them in the most brutal ways. The game actually has levels of brutality you can use in your executions, including hasty executions, which are quick and not very bloody, aka not fun, violent executions, which are a bit more gory, and the ultimate level, the gruesome executions, which are way over the top. Check them out. The game also has environmental executions in which you use various objects in the rooms to dispatch your foes. You get bonus points for using these executions. Aside from sneaking up on your enemies and taking them out, you can also go toe-to-toe with them in a melee fight. This game has tons of weapons you can use against them, but the combat is supremely janky. For the most part, if you face any more than one enemy at a time, you are gonna get whipped. It's best to sneak up on your opponents and take them out without them ever seeing you. This game is so bloody, especially the animations and the executions, that it was banned in Australia, Germany, Malaysia, South Korea, and New Zealand. The game barely missed a ban in Italy, the UK, and the US, and this is only because Rockstar blurred some of the details in the executions. The game also has you sneaking into a sex club, and although it's not a big deal to any adult PS2 owner, it's probably not something you want the kiddos to view. This didn't stop Rockstar from releasing an uncut version of the game on PC that is rated adults only, and it's probably the best version of the game to play, because you know, blood and guts and all. While the movement and combat in this game need work, it's probably a good game to grant you some credibility. Just to say that you played it will make you a hero at parties. For those of you who haven't played Rule of Rose, it's easy to dismiss it as a Resident Evil clone, but the game has enough going for it to set it apart from probably the most famous survival horror series in existence. Developed by Punchline and released in 2006 by Atlas, Rule of Rose is a psychological survival horror game for the PS2 that made a lot of waves over in Europe for its depictions of abuse and violence against children.
You're a disgrace.
The game is probably one of the stranger survival horror games that I have played, and I have played quite a bit of them. You play as a teenager named Jennifer who is sent to live in an orphanage as both of her parents have died. During the bus ride to the orphanage, you are awakened by a small boy who asks you to finish reading the storybook you gave to him. He jumps out of the bus and you follow him all the way to the orphanage. It's bizarre. Once you arrive at the gates of the orphanage, you witness a group of children beating a bloody bag with sticks. That's when you stealthily back away and look for a way to enter the orphanage. And that's where the fun begins. Rule of Rose focuses quite a bit on exploration, and the game's main focus is to find items that will allow you to access different areas in the game and solve puzzles. The game is laden with imaginative and disturbing cutscenes that depict cruelty and abuse against the protagonist and several other children that are part of the secret aristocrat society that is causing all the terror in the game. At one point, Jennifer is thrown into a coffin and transported to an airship where she must continue playing her captor's wicked games. Rule of Rose is a slow game, but it's never boring. The scenes are so compelling that you just want to keep the story moving along. The game features pre-rendered backgrounds, however, I wouldn't classify your character's movements as tank controls. It can be played in the third person, but there are times when the camera switches to a more cinematic view. You are joined in the game by a dog you rescued from the aristocrats. Poor puppy. He helps you track down many useful items and allows you to find the right door or place to progress in the game by way of his find command. He is super cute and I love using him in this game. Another cool aspect of this game is that you never actually have to worry about item management. The game allows you to drop items whenever you need to, instantly transporting them to a garbage can that acts like a chest. It's one of the things that annoyed me about games like Resident Evil, and this is refreshing. The game's story and characters are definitely one of the game's strong points, and a major reason why it caused so much drama over in Europe, where it caused widespread debate over violence and morality in video games. If killing is the name of the game, then The Punisher is the game of the year. The Punisher for the PS2 is an extremely bloody game that has hints of games like Max Payne and is one of the games that you have to play to believe. By now, everyone knows that Frank Castle, known as the Punisher, is hellbent on getting revenge for the killing of his wife and child in a mob hit. And boy does he get it in this game. The game follows the exploits of the Punisher as he retells his tale of wanton murder to a couple of cops who are interrogating him and trying to figure out why he went on a killing spree. Each stage you take on retells the Punisher's story and the ways that he killed his enemies. Most of the killing you will be doing will be by way of the many weapons at the Punisher's disposal, but if you want to go for the high points, you will be using the many disturbing executions in the game. The executions in this game are rather disturbing. You can feed them to piranhas, kill them with saws, electrocute them with eels, or simply brutally stab them. There's really no shortage of ways to execute villains in this game, but you can also do special interrogations that will yield you useful information. After getting the info you need, you can then proceed to execute them, or you can let them go, or you can use them as a bullet shield against your enemies. It's really up to you. But I usually interrogated them and then killed them. I rarely let them go. After all, I am the Punisher. The game also has special kill spots which are outlined by special marks in the game, indicating that if you grab an enemy and bring them to the spot, you can kill them in a more brutal fashion. Of course, if you want to do your killing rather boringly, you can just beat them to death with a melee weapon, or simply grabbing them and putting a bullet in their head. The more killing you do in the Punisher, the more your rage mode grows. As you fill up your rage bar, you can go into rage mode, which turns your screen black and white, slows everything down, and you can murder your enemies with your knives for some big points. The points you amass in the game by killing enemies can be used to buy power-ups at the end of the stage, so killing them in colorful ways is encouraged to get the max points. It's because of the interrogations and the executions that this game got the dreaded adults-only rating by the ESRB. Of course, it makes the game a lot harder to sell to the general public, so developers made the more egregious executions in black and white. This nerfing of the executions was enough to downgrade it from adults only to mature. Anyhow, this is a game that you should not play if you are a decent, moral person. Luckily, I'm neither, and I had a blast with this game. The more blood and gore the better. Hey, I'm a kid of the 80s, and that's how we liked our movies and video games. Sue me! Talk about an eerie game. Silent Hill 2 is not a scary game because of the usual stuff like blood, guts, and gore. Oh no. This game chooses other elements including storytelling, level design, pacing, setting, and above all, atmosphere, to scramble the brains of gamers and make for one of the most disturbing experiences on the PS2. You play as James Sunderland, who returns to Silent Hill to search for his missing wife Mary. Little does he know that the Silent Hill that he and his wife used to visit for a little R&R is not the same place. Oh no. This Silent Hill is covered in a blanket of ghostly fog impregnated with terrible, grotesque creatures. The game is far from a more action-oriented survival horror game, such as the action we saw in RE2 and RE3. Silent Hill is all about exploration, and knowing when to fight your enemies or run past them. The game has a hefty amount of puzzles, which can be frustrating at times, but are totally doable if you can find the right clues sprinkled throughout the levels. Solving the puzzles will grant you access to different areas of the game or give you a special item, such as a key needed to progress. The town of Silent Hill is mostly empty. Well, aside from the weird monsters in town who are trying to kill you, but the town does have some inhabitants you can talk to and who progress the story. Some of them try to kill you. The game's atmosphere can best be described as eerie, giving you a sense of fear that comes with not knowing what to expect. One minute you are exploring an empty apartment complex, the next you are fighting the pyramid head dude who is wielding a knife and trying to kill you. Then there's these dudes with legs as heads and these zombie-like dudes who also want in on the action. Silent Hill 2, at least to me, is mostly disturbing because it makes you feel so alone while trying to overcome the sinister creatures after you, and probably most of all the psychological aspects of exploring a mostly dark, mostly misty town that hides horrors within. Of course, the game has lots of items to collect as well as weapons to help you in your quest. One of the most frustrating parts of this game is that you often get stuck and must explore or wander around until you figure it out. Luckily, the game provides a map if you can find it, and it helps a lot. Silent Hill 2 is one of these games that sort of makes you ask yourself if you are brave enough to make it to the end of the game, and probably more important, will you like what you find when you get there? Konami recently announced that they are remaking Silent Hill 2, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. And last but not least is the relatively obscure survival horror game Echo Night Beyond. Released in 2004, Echo Night Beyond was the third game in the Echo Night trilogy of survival horror games. In Echo Night Beyond, you play as Richard Osman, who is flying to the moon with his newlywed wife. The plane crashes and basically kills everyone on board, yet somehow you survive. You find a mysterious message written on one of the seats that gives you a sense that your wife wants to meet you on the moon base. You quickly discover that the ghosts of the people who died aboard the space shuttle are now scattered throughout the moon base in what turns out to be a quite terrifying and chilling adventure. On the moon base there are no weapons to wield, monsters to kill, or boss battles to fight. Billed as a quiet horror game, in Echo Night Beyond, you must both avoid and converse with the dead to solve the mystery of what happened to your wife, and at the same time, free their souls so they can move on to the afterlife. In that respect, the game is both sad and disturbing, and most of the ghosts try to kill you before asking for help. You can switch their opinion of you by turning on the ventilation of the room that they are occupying, and clearing up the mist that they are floating in. Once you do so, instead of them trying to kill you, you can talk to them and figure out what they need from you to move on. Much like Silent Hill 2, Echo Night Beyond is a quiet and eerie time on the PS2, but in a much different way. The game is a bit sad, being surrounded by spirits who lost their lives while traveling to the moon and all. Aside from these ghosts, you stumble upon an android dude, who you later find out is named Kenneth. He has a significant role in why the moon base is covered in fog. At any rate, this is not such a disturbing game as it is a melancholy one. And being melancholy, at least to me, is disturbing. But you be the judge. If you played this game, let me know in the comments. And that's gonna be it for the Big Retro Show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, and dropping a comment. And I will see you next time on the Big Retro Show.